Hi, I'm Avery. I wasn't invited to my own family's reunion again. 10 years. 10 years of scrubbed captions, surgical crops, and chair assignments where my name floated like a rumor no one dared say. I was too sensitive, too distant, too dramatic. The holy trinity of dismissals they tossed like confetti whenever I asked for a basic RSVP and the respect of being someone's daughter, someone's sister. This time I didn't beg for a folding chair at their altar of selective memory. I bought the entire beach house. So when they rolled in with luggage and saccharine smiles and the front desk said, "Are you on Miss Vale's guest list?" they could either pronounce me or turn around. Before we dive in, tell me where you're watching from and what time your clock swears it is. Drop it in the comments. I'm the lunatic who actually reads them all. Monday mornings aren't supposed to feel like a fire alarm in your chest. They're supposed to be lukewarm coffee, a half-murdered protein bar, and inboxes you pretend don't exist until your second cup. But this Monday, this one came barreling in wearing a cheerleader grin and a knife in its ponytail. Harrington Family Beach Week 2025, RSVP now. The subject line grinned at me in bold. My breath stuttered. Click. Every Harrington was there. CC'd with the zeal of a group pilgrimage. Sloan, Griffin, Aunt Romy, even Cousin Brett. The man hasn't answered a text since the Clinton years and suddenly he's a joiner. My name wasn't missing. It was erased. Not in the thread, not in the spreadsheet, not even as a stray typo trying to sneak in through the side door. I stared like the email had climbed out of my screen and slapped me. Replies bloomed, little quips, last year's memories, a photo of the fire pit at sunset. The exact same fire pit where I roasted marshmallows at 8. Still believing love in this family came without late fees or return policies. I scrolled, hunting for the magical follow-up. Oops, we forgot Avery. As if miracles were a thing they offered me. Last year's excuse was that my invite went to spam, Sloan said, laughing like she just solved world hunger by instructing me to check promotions. I closed the thread. The room went museum still. My frame degree looked like a prop from someone else's life. Sunlight bounced off the Santa Monica skyline with a smug sort of warmth. I turned to my bookshelf, and the turquoise glass seashell glinted at me from behind outdated manuals and a sulking jade plant. It was a 10th birthday gift. My mother had called it something special for my special girl, back when special still applied to me and not exclusively to Sloan and her curated perfection. Back before my mother started introducing me as the one who lives at work. You good? I jumped. Julian stood in my doorway with his oversteeped green tea, the steam curling like a question mark. Fine, I said. Spam email. His eyebrow lifted, the kind you raise when you've watched me bluff through boardrooms and breakroom tears. From them again. I didn't answer. I shut my laptop like it was a confession. My promotion packet sat smugly on the desk, senior vice president at 38. The youngest candidate in firm history. I had survived fossilized boardroom egos, 12-hour days, and men whose entire strategic advantage was a 6-iron. And still, to them I was a misprint. The ghost who chose ambition over nostalgia. My phone buzzed. Camila. Saw the invite. Want to crash it for sport? I typed and deleted 3 replies. Then, or I could do something smarter. I pulled up the bookmarked link I'd kept like a dare I didn't think I'd take. Real estate listings, specifically the house. The house where Sloan took maternity photos in flower crowns and effortless lighting. The house where my parents toasted their 30th without telling me, because apparently you were traveling for work, is the same as no longer a daughter. The market had dipped, quiet and opportunistic. The Harringtons were offloading assets like last season's patio furniture. Photos spun past. The wraparound porch, the breathless ocean view. The chairs where Dad read Steinbeck out loud before pretending he couldn't hear my calls. My cursor hovered over contact agent. I clicked. The confirmation email hit before my breath did, and then my phone rang with the ringtone I'd assigned her years ago, the one that announces prepare for impact. I didn't need to look. Hi, Mom. Lydia slid into her church lady voice, dipped in sugar and plausible deniability. Darling, this year is tricky. You know how chaotic it gets with the little ones. We're just limited on space. I could have lip-synced her. Same monologue, new year. Let me guess, I said. Sloane's kids need the bunk room. Or Griffin's +1 is allergic to hotel pillows. Silence. The kind where you can hear her blinking at her manicure. calibrating her next gentle cruelty. You understand, don't you, Avery? It's just logistics. Logistics. I remembered that word from 2 summers ago, right before they told me to swing by for a day. As if I lived an Uber ride away and not a life I built from scratch. I understand perfectly, I said. Thanks for the heads up. I hung up. No theatrics. No sobbing into a decorative pillow. I drank a glass of water like I was training for a marathon called Not Losing My Mind, then opened a spreadsheet, my favorite translation of pain into power. Liquid cash. Vesting dates. Discretionary assets. A chessboard disguised as cell references. Let's play, I whispered. 10 minutes later, Camila pinged. Screenshot incoming. She always warned me before detonations. I opened it. A group chat I wasn't in, of course. Sloan. Don't worry, Avery won't come. She wants to make it about herself as usual. Reactions bloomed. Uncle Pierce. That girl needs therapy. Hilarious how the family who taught me silence now diagnosed me with drama. The numbness peeled back, and under it something colder, sharper, clarity. They weren't forgetting me. They were rewriting me. Camila sent another. Your mom just asked if I'd be okay staying in your old room. Said it was just sitting there. The same room with Nana Elise's quilt. The mural I painted at 12. The tiny brass desk where I wrote my first college essay, while everyone downstairs graded Sloane's dimples like a group rubric. I pulled up the listing again, but this time my hand didn't shake. I scheduled a private appointment. No scene. Just action. Quiet, surgical, irreversible. The beachfront office was a sleek slice of blue glass between a surf shop and a cafe that successfully sold $6 croissants by calling them laminated. A woman with silver curls and a lavender scarf rose from behind the desk. You must be Ms. Vale, she said, voice warm like a porch light. I'm Eleanor Price. Thanks for fitting me in, I answered. She tilted her head. Your name? Are you related to the current owners? Yes, I said, meeting her eyes without flinching. But not for long. The storage facility air smelled like dust and second chances. Unit 43B protested as I rolled it up. Metal teeth, old arguments. Inside. My first apartment's couch, boxes labeled college in a handwriting I no longer used. A crate of books from an era when I weaponized blazers because tenderness wasn't working. In the back, the cedar trunk, Nana's. I slid it forward, brushed off the dust like it owed me answers. The latch stuck, then yielded. Lavender sachets breathed out 40 years in a sigh. On top, a sea blue journal with seashells glued to the corners in her artless, perfect way. Under it, an envelope, my name slanted across it, for Avery. Open when you stop asking permission. I sat cross-legged on the concrete and opened it. The letter was short, like truth when it's no longer trying to convince you. One day you'll understand why I left this to you alone. Love doesn't always live where it sleeps. Use this when their silence becomes a wall. Beneath it, a trust document. Real signatures. Real witnesses. A clause that burned through the paper like match heat. Should the existing deed holders become delinquent on taxes or lapse required insurance, the named beneficiary reserves the right to execute a full transfer of title. I didn't get every legal nuance, but I understood power when it leaned across a table and introduced itself. By morning I was sitting in the walnut and brass hush of Hendricks and Lowell. Nadine at the front desk offered coffee like an oath. 10 minutes later I was in a partner's office, the kind of room where outcomes are sculpted. Mr. Whitaker, 60-something, glasses low, a mind like a scalpel, tapped the clause with a fountain pen. This isn't leverage, he said. It's a failsafe. If your parents miss taxes or let the insurance lapse, you're not asking, you're executing. He looked up. If that's already occurred, you sign this petition today and, absent a valid contest, title transfers in 14 business days. 14 days. Exactly enough time for them to fill coolers, polish their stories, and rehearse the toast to family. I signed. Not triumphant, just ready. Mr. Whitaker slid me a copy. It's done. They'll learn very soon. Back home, I set the turquoise glass seashell beside Nana's journal. Same shimmer, same stubborn light. They thought these were trinkets. They were coordinates. My inbox chimed. An email from Sloane's personal account with the subject line hugging itself too tightly. Final RSVP. Room assignments, can't wait. The body read like a Pinterest board had a baby with a megaphone. No hi Avery. No mention. 5 minutes later. Camila again, this time with the digital equivalent of smelling salts. New group. Core Harrington only. Sloan. Avery's not coming. Let's move forward without the drama. Griffin dropped a gif of a peace sign like he brokered global amnesty from consequences. Then the kicker, Camila. Your mom asked if I wanted your old room. Said it was wasted space. I didn't cry. I logged into the owner portal I now had lawful access to and pulled up the calendar. One room unbooked. The master suite. King bed, private deck, full ocean view. I typed without mercy. Guest Miss Vale. Arrival Friday. Length of stay 3 nights. Preferences. Welcome bottle of Perrier Jouet on ice. Firm pillows, cotton sheets, full privacy. Confirm. Email ping. A slow traitorous smile. Let them explain that to one another. That night, I walked circles in my living room with a glass of red that tasted like decisions. I scrolled through years of photos, reunions where I held the camera like a cloak, birthdays I couldn't make, according to people who never asked if I wanted to. I paused at a picture of Sloan blowing out candles while I hovered behind her, beheaded in the version that made it to Instagram. That was my role, the crop line. Dad's voice wandered back from the year I finally told them no. You're too sensitive, Avery. Not everything's about you. He was right. This finally was about me. Not because I needed their spotlight. Because I was done pretending I didn't know my name. Before bed I texted Camila. Don't cancel plans. Just wear something that pairs well with chaos. She sent back 3 cry laughs and a skull. The sacred emoji trinity of best friends who show up with bail money or brownies, dealer's choice. I drove east the next morning. Away from waves toward citrus groves and the quiet hill where Nana sleeps. No flowers, just a single scoop of lavender honey from the hole-in-the-wall parlor she loved. Perched on a sugar cone like a balancing act. Her headstone hides between 2 rose bushes she once called performative. Give me time or basil, she'd whisper. Something useful. I sat on the warm grass. Hey Nana, I said. They're doing it again. You'd roll your eyes into next week. Wind lifted. I set the cone at her stone and said the thing she taught me when I was too small to reach the good plates. You told me not to raise my voice. You told me to raise my value. I had. I was. My phone buzzed as I reached the car. Family chat. Griffin called dibs on the master suite. Feels good to be back. The replies were a chorus of mediocrity. Classic Griffin. Beat the kids to it. No one asked who booked the house. No one wondered how the keys work. I typed this is awkward already reserved under my name. Send. Silence. Then like clockwork. A private ping from Sloan. What are you trying to do? My thumbs didn't rush. I wrote it slow, surgical. I'm not trying. I told you, you just never listened. Scene. I muted the thread, blocked the chorus, logged out, not from fury, from clarity. When you stop needing permission to exist, the ground changes under your feet. Sometimes you realize it's your ground. I kept my distance when they arrived that evening. Sloan's white Audi, Griffin's overblown SUV with windows so dark, he thinks they convert insecurity into mystery. My mother's aging sedan with the proud grandma sticker ghosting on the bumper. They didn't see me. They never do until they need what I have. I gave them time to pour themselves into the house like it didn't have a new heartbeat. Then I eased the car forward and walked into reception. Heels clipping against cool tile in a metronome, I didn't bother to soften. Sloan was already at the desk, gesturing like she was conducting an orchestra no one else could hear. Griffin leaned on the marble as if posture could equal property. Lydia hovered, mouth pursed into the shape of a question mark that only points one way. The desk clerk's voice was polite, puzzled. So you're not on Miss Vale's guest list? I didn't make them wait. There's no need to escalate, I told the clerk, stepping into the conversation like it had always been mine. I'll clarify. I place my ID and the confirmation on the counter with the same calm I use when a board member tries to circle back on my work and call it his. Reservation under Vale. Title transfer recorded last week. The clerk's gaze flicked from the screen to me and softened the way faces do when friction turns into fact. Yes, Ms. Vale. I see it here. Welcome. Sloan's mouth opened and then forgot how to close. You are not serious. Griffin puffed himself up like a human car alarm. You think you can just, evict family? I didn't even turn toward him. No. I'm asking the front desk to follow policy. Anyone not on my guest list will need to find alternate lodging. Kindly. I smiled at the clerk. Please be gentle. They're sensitive. The word landed like a slap. Lydia clutched her bag as if I'd threatened to repossess her pearls. Avery, darling. Is this hatred? Is that what this is? No, I said and meant it. It's boundaries. There's a difference. Griffin laughed the way men laugh when panic needs a mask. Our attorney will eat this for breakfast. Then tell him to hydrate, I said, taking my key packet. Salt air's brutal. I glanced at the clerk. If security needs context, you have my written authorization on file. The clerk nodded, already calling it in like this was Tuesday, which amusingly it was. I didn't stay to watch the performance. I stepped into the elevator, felt the doors fold their quiet halves together, and watched my family shrink into a painting. One person gesturing, one scowling, one clutching pearls. My reflection in the brass trim didn't look victorious. It looked awake. I set the key packet in my palm like a pulse. Not relief. Readiness. War without shouting, just paperwork. The knock came 20 minutes later. Not a neighborly tap. A rapid, camera-ready rattle, every strike announcing we brought an audience. When I pulled back the curtain, a news van sat like a shark with a masthead, its antennae slicked up to the marine layer. A reporter with a smile made of teeth raised his mic as if blessing himself. I opened the door an inch. Ms. Vale. Sources allege you coerced your elderly father into signing over the family property, while of unsound mind. Do you want to comment on elder exploitation? Behind him the camera's red light blinked like a heart monitor. He was just checking if I would flatline on cue. I closed the door. Quietly. With the finality of a gavel. By the time I set my phone on the counter, it began vibrating like it had been plugged into an earthquake. Old neighbors, is this true? Colleague, rough headline, call me if you want PR. A cousin I hadn't heard from since Nana's funeral. Family First Avenue. You're going to regret this. Then came the legal cherry on the Sunday. Temporary injunction. Occupancy TOC's pending hearing. If violated, penalties may apply. My spine chilled, then steadied. I was holding clean paper. If they wanted a courtroom, I'd meet them on my turf. The record. Camila's text arrived like a flare shot through fog. They wanted war. Let's start with truth. The flood followed screenshots, saved emails, voice notes. Sloan in the Core Harrington chat. Let her rot in her condo. If she wanted in, she should have been easier to manage. Lydia, months earlier, to an aunt. Avery doesn't care about family unless she can control the narrative. Don't feel bad excluding her. She's used to being alone. Griffin charming as mildew. If she shows up, I'll make a scene so big she'll never come back. I scrolled without flinching. Years of being told I was dramatic, now neatly subtitled with their own drama. The house creaked when the wind leaned into it. I wandered to the built-in shelves and touched the spine of a book that still smelled like summer hands. Tucked behind it, a shell. Pale ivory brushed with a blue stripe. Dad had pointed it out to me when I was 7. You deserve everything good this world can give you, he'd said, placing it in my palm like a coronation. The man who said that didn't exist in the filings now bearing his name, but I had him on a video the family forgot I had. 2 summers ago, porch light gold over coffee mugs, his voice clear as tide charts. I want Avery to have this place. She's the one who came when I fell. She's the only one who asked how I was, not what I could give. I'd asked, are you sure? He'd laughed. They always made her feel like a guest. She's not a guest. She's the legacy. I put my folder together that night at the kitchen table. Nana's trust, tax delinquency notices I'd pulled from public records. Apparently the logistics they love so much didn't include paying the county on time. Insurance lapse notices, my owner portal access logs, Camila's screenshots, the porch video, and a voicemail from Lydia last year cooing. The little ones need the bunk room, sweetheart. You understand. My binder didn't look like vengeance. It looked like a ledger that had finally balanced. The morning of the hearing arrived gray and airless, like the sky decided to abstain. I walked into Department 23 alone, navy dress, hair pinned the way Nana used to call steel-willed neat. No entourage, no PR. Just the folder hugged to my ribs and a spine I didn't have at 20 but grew out of necessity. Lydia sat 2 rows up, embalmed in denial. She didn't glance back. Sloane wore white because of course she did. She always dresses like innocence you can dry clean. Griffin. Absent like accountability. The clerk called it. Harrington versus Vale. Petition for injunction under claim of manipulation and elder exploitation. Sloane's lawyer stood. A young man so polished he squeaked when he breathed. Your Honor, the petitioner contends that Ms. Vale exerted undue influence upon her father during a period of cognitive decline, resulting in an unlawful transfer of deed rights and exclusion of family. He paused reverently before undue influence as if the syllables paid his rent. The judge, gray hair, kind eyes, a patience that doubles as a threat, lifted his gaze to me. Ms. Vale. I stood. With the court's permission, I'd like to present video evidence of my father expressing his clear intent 2 years prior to the trust execution and documentary evidence of statutory defaults which triggered the trust's fail-safe clause. I'd also like to submit audio records relevant to the family's long-standing exclusionary pattern. A nod. Proceed. The bailiff dimmed the lights. The porch filled the screen, sunlight soft, gulls heckling in the distance. Dad's voice carried. I want Avery to have this place. She's the legacy. Not a stammer, not a slur, not a stray thought. Clear. Chosen. Mine. A sound passed through the gallery, the human noise we make when a script goes off book. The audio clip followed. Sloane's voice, snake-slick. Let her rot. If she wanted in, she should have been easier to manage. I didn't look at her. The evidence did the looking. I submitted the county notices, stamped and date perfect. The judge flipped, eyes narrowing the way a surgeon narrows before slicing where the trouble lies. Counsel, he said to Sloane's rent-a-suit, do you have any competent evidence contradicting the respondent's exhibits? Polished boy cleared his throat. Your Honor, the petitioner maintains that. Maintains is not evidence. The judge cut in, gentle as a shut door. He turned back to me. Ms. Vale, the court finds your documentation credible. The trust clause appears unambiguous. Upon delinquency or lapse, beneficiary may execute transfer. The video demonstrates clarity of intent. The audio demonstrates an exclusionary pattern which, while not directly dispositive, certainly contextualizes. Petition denied. Temporary injunction dissolved. The gavel's tap was soft. Sloane's composure cracked in hairline lines only sisters can see. Lydia's fingers pinched the strap of her bag until her knuckles went the color of printer paper. Picked up my folder. No smirk. No victory lap. I felt something settle into place beneath my ribs. An alignment you only get when truth doesn't need volume to be heard. Outside, microphones bloomed like invasive species. Ms. Vale, comment? I paused long enough to teach the quote its shape. Sometimes the only way to break a cycle is to stop performing in it, I said. Today I stopped. Flash. Flash. Questions. I descended the courthouse steps and the air finally smelled like salt again. On the way to the car my phone hummed. Camila. How bad? I texted a photo of the order stamp denied. She responded with 4 emojis. A sword, a gavel, a little house, and a pelican because she's dramatic and because she knows the coastline is my religion. Another buzz. Mrs. Donnelly from 2 doors down, heard the noise. Lemon bars later? I typed back, please. I unlocked the car and sat for a full minute in silence. Not hunting for closure. Just listening to the sound of my own breath like it was a language I'd finally learned to read. By late afternoon, the beach house key was warm against my palm. The drive along the coast unspooled like a ribbon you don't need to tie anymore. When I turned into the gravel drive, the house rose up in sunlight, familiar and far away, like a place you know from dreams and deeds. Inside, it looked like a party had been alarm-clocked mid-sentence. A glass sweating on the counter, folded towels by the stairs, the speaker still cued to Sloane's playlist, as if the house itself had been holding a breath all morning. I walked the hall of photos, Sloane's kids, summer dinners, bonfire nights where my laugh exists only as a reflection in someone else's wineglass. I didn't take them down. Not yet. I let the walls keep their memory. Let them watch while the center of gravity moved. In Nana's old office, the bottom drawer stuck the way it always had. I eased it open and lifted the seashell wind chime we made when I was 8. Tangled line, cracked edges, The soft blue string frayed thin. One painted initial, the V, had almost worn away. I didn't fetch glue. I fetched patience. I laid it across the kitchen table and, thread by stubborn thread, I began to make it sing again while the ocean kept time through the screen door. My phone lit the table's edge. A private message from Sloan. This isn't over. I set the phone face down, tied another knot, and let the breeze answer for me. A soft knock. I looked up, heartbeat kicking once. Not cameras. Mrs. Donnelly, tin of lemon bars in both hands like an offering. Welcome home, she said. Your father used to brag about you, you know. Said you were the one who asked about tide charts at 6. I swallowed a laugh that didn't know whether to cry. He said that. Constantly, she smiled. Said you thought in tides. After she left, I stepped onto the porch, wind chime threaded and ready. I hung it by the beam and the first delicate notes chimed out, tentative, true. The house didn't exhale. I did. Night would come with its chorus, calls I wouldn't answer, statements I didn't owe. In the morning I'd make a list, locks to rekey, linens to launder, a porch rail to sand, a life to live. For now, I stood in the doorway with the key warm in my fist and the ocean flicking silver at the horizon like a dare I was finally ready to take. And somewhere between the shell's small music and the waves' old applause, I understood the most dramatic thing I'd done wasn't buying a house. It was refusing to audition for a family that had already cast me as invisible. I had the deed. But more than that, I had the ending and the pen. The house woke up before I did. Not with footsteps or voices, those were done for now, but with light that moved across the floor like it had somewhere to be. I made coffee and wrote a letter at the kitchen island. Each sentence a plank in the bridge between old rules and the new ground I was willing to stand on. Subject: access and expectations. Guests at 404 Ocean Crest will respect written boundaries, time windows, and actual humans. No surprise arrivals. No group chats about a person instead of to a person. If you can't say my name with respect, try silence. I attached the court order, the deed, and a short list of logistics because if they loved logistics so much they could finally be devout. I copied the front desk. I copied security. I didn't CC Hope. They came anyway because habits die last. Late morning, I saw Sloan at the gate in a white dress that could have doubled as a cease and desist. Lydia hovered behind her. Palms pressed together like prayer could be used as a password. Griffin lagged with a man carrying a toolbox and the confidence of YouTube tutorials. I stepped onto the porch and let the wind chime speak first. Its small music made them look up. A sound like thread through a needle. Sloan tried a smile on and didn't notice it didn't fit. Avery, we should talk privately, she said, the last word sugar-dusted. For the children's sake. There it was. The emergency fire alarm that only ever rang when they needed a shortcut through accountability. For the children's sake, I repeated. We'll talk here calmly. No filming. No raised voices. No mythology. I nodded to the security officer I'd hired for the week. Uniform steady. A presence that turned dramatics into paperwork. Griffin lifted his chin at the officer like he was scenting for weakness. We're just getting our things, he announced, stepping toward the door. And maybe the master. Temporarily. The master is occupied, I said, and held up the court order. Temporary injunction dissolved. Trespass is still real. You may pick up personal belongings from the shed at 2 o'clock. I'll have them staged. If you try the door, we start speaking in charges. Lydia's voice arrived wrapped in velvet. Sweetheart, this is all so unnecessary. She took a step, then another, as if motherhood were a universal skeleton key. You know how chaotic it gets. The little ones. The little ones, I said gently, will be fine at the Sea Lodge, which has adjoining rooms and a pool shaped like a dolphin. I already called. They're ready. You can put it on the family card or on Griffin's aura, whichever still works. Sloan inhaled, righteous. So this is who you are now. You buy a house and buy a personality to match. This is who I've always been, I said, and set Nana's journal on the table between us like a centerpiece. You just cropped me out of your view. She stared at the journal like it might bite. Then what do you want, Avery? Spell it out. I want accurate language, I said. I want no more she's dramatic when I say I'm hurt. I want no more logistics when you mean choices. I want an apology, not the PR kind you write in notes with perfect margins, but the kind that understands what it's for. And I want you to stop telling the world I stole a sick man's signature when you know he picked up that pen without shaking." Griffin scoffed. "You rehearsed that in the mirror?" I didn't bother looking at him. I rehearsed silence for a decade. Turns out I prefer lines. Lydia's mouth trembled, admiration and resentment battling behind her lipstick. "We can talk about an apology," she said, reaching for diplomacy like a scarf. "But this spectacle." "No spectacle," I said. "Just boundaries with sunlight." The locksmith shifted, cleared his throat. If you don't actually need me." "You don't," I said, without breaking eye contact with my family. The locksmith took his dignity and walked away. For a second, even the gulls stopped editorializing. Sloane folded her arms. "If we apologize, do we get the house back? Is that what this is?" "This is a house," I said, "and a history. One can be shared on my terms. The other will never be rewritten on yours." I turned to the security officer. 2:00, the shed. "I'll stage their items. If they're early, escort them to the dolphin pool." They left in a knot of indignation, pulling the gate so hard it clanged like a cymbal crash. I let the sound ring out and die, then went inside to stage boxes, photo albums, the quilt that belonged to Sloane's daughter, Griffin's salt-crusted fishing pole. I labeled everything in block letters. The clerical tenderness of someone who refuses to fight dirty, even when she could win by rolling around in mud. At 1:58 p.m., the three of them reappeared. No apologies, but quieter. 2 hours, I said. No house entry. You can leave a letter. You cannot deliver a performance. Griffin opened his mouth. The security officer looked at his watch. Griffin closed it. Lydia's eyes skipped over the wind chime and landed on the seashell on the table inside. Turquoise glass catching the afternoon and throwing it back in pieces. Something in her face flickered: regret, grief, or just an unpracticed recognition of me. They carried boxes to the car. Sloane paused at the gate, staring into the house like it was a stage she once owned. "I hope you're happy," she said softly, weaponizing tenderness like a last resort. "I hope you learn what happiness actually is," I answered. "It doesn't require an audience." After they left, the quiet was not an absence. It was a presence. Camila arrived with grocery bags. Julian texted he was on his way with a toolbox that came with actual competence. And Mrs. Donnelly waved from the walkway with a stack of paper plates and the kind of smile that has seen entire summers through. We grilled on the back deck. Simple food that tasted like a vacation you don't have to earn. Camila mixed lemonade in a glass pitcher and whispered, "To women who keep receipts and their peace." We clinked, and the sound threaded into the wind chime song until they were one melody, proof that not all choruses require permission. We held a small fire that night. Nothing theatrical, just a bowl of flames that breathed quietly and accepted what we fed it. I took the stack of copied county notices, the screenshots, even the temporary injunction like a molting snake carries its old skin, and I fed them to the fire one by one. Not to erase them. They'd been filed, stamped, immortalized where it mattered. This was for me. The flames read each line and turned it into heat I could actually use. Julian fixed the sticky office drawer, humming something nameless. Camila moved through the kitchen with an authority that made the house relax. Mrs. Donnelly told a story about tide pools and a winter storm that had once rearranged the entire shoreline overnight. Like the ocean had woken up bored and decided to rewrite the neighborhood. "Shorelines move," she said, eyes on me. "The maps just take a while to catch up." Near midnight, a message blinked on my phone from an unknown number that wasn't unrecognizable. "Sloane. I'm not promising anything, but I read the clause. I didn't know about the taxes. That's on us." The apology wasn't there. Accountability was peeking around the corner, shy and suspicious of its own usefulness. I typed, "Thank you for saying that. When you're ready to apologize for more than the paperwork, my door has a handle and not a buzzer." She didn't reply. The read receipt sat there like a humid exhale. I set the phone face down and let the night do what it does best, turn noise into distance. In the morning, I drafted a different letter, the kind that builds something instead of guarding it. The Vale Residency, I titled it, and I smiled because naming is a kind of claiming that runs deeper than ink. 1 week every quarter, the beach house would host a quiet retreat for women who needed rest without asking permission. Caregivers, students on fumes, social workers with compassion fatigue, nurses between shifts and selves. No hashtags. No speeches. Just a room with a door that locks from the inside, cotton sheets, and a deck where the horizon refuses to be smaller than you are. I sent it to Mr. Whitaker for the legal bones, then to Camila, who replied with 3 words. Build it, Captain. By afternoon, I stood at the edge of the water with my shoes in my hand and my name steady in my mouth. Pelicans skimmed the surface like they knew exactly how low to fly without becoming an apology to gravity. I thought about Dad, about the version of him that belongs to porch light and coffee steam, the man who placed a shell in my palm and called it a future. I thought about the version that didn't pick up the phone and the filing sign without me in the room. People are not one thing. I am not one thing. Family certainly is not. But houses? Houses can be told what to hold. I walked back up the path and into the kitchen as the late sun painted the floor the color of second chances. On the counter, the turquoise glass seashell sat beside Nana's journal like 2 small lighthouses that had been trying to talk to each other for years. I opened the journal. A blank page waited, patient. I wrote, I didn't win a house. I ended an audition. I won't make myself smaller to fit inside a story I didn't write. Then, because Nana taught me to document tide tables and truths with the same seriousness, I added, the wind chime sings when the wind asks, not when the house performs. I underlined nothing. The page didn't need decoration. As dusk folded itself over the water, I walked the rooms, office, bunk room, the master where the ocean writes its monologue across the glass, and turned off lights one by one. I paused at the hallway of photos and made a small adjustment. I added one. Not a glamour shot. Not a victory lap. A candid Camila had taken earlier. Me on the porch, hair messy, laugh unposed, wind chime mid-song. Evidence that I existed here. Evidence that I didn't need to ask to be included. At the door I listened for the old ghosts, the urge to text, to placate, to bid for entry. They didn't knock. The only sound was the soft clack of the chime and the steady throat clearing of the sea. I closed the door from the inside. Not to keep anyone out. To keep myself in.